Some songs take the world by storm.
Let it go.
Sorry, I promise I won't get that stuck again. But many of these songs are oftentimes in a matter of months and sometimes years, kind of forgotten about. But other songs stand the test of time across decades, sometimes even centuries. Today I want to talk about a tune that I think is one of the most beautiful songs ever written for film. It has stood the test of time for over 50 years, and I suspect that it will continue to for decades, if not centuries to come. And that song is Pure Imagination.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
Come on.
Take a look, and you'll see.
Okay, I think this is the most beautiful song for film for a number of reasons. And the setup is great too, with just this like kind of dissonant harmony as we get into it. Woo! Yeah.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
So what we're doing harmonically there is just a 2-5-1. That's it. We're in the key of D flat, and we have E flat minor, A flat dominant, D flat major 7. That's all this is in the first phrase, but take a look at the melody. We have B flat, D flat, and A flat. Now this repeats almost 3 times. It repeats twice identically, right? And then the third time, we trade our A flat for C. Now let's take a look at what those melody notes do with this particular harmony. Our first chord, E flat minor 7. So over E flat minor 7, our B flat is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then our flat 7, 5, 6, flat 7. And then A flat, which is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, okay? So anytime we're talking about notes that are not the first 4 of the initial chord, we generally consider those to be upper extensions. 5, 7, flat 7, 11. E flat minor 11 is essentially what this melody constructs, right? And then over our A flat, it's just the root, right? But then when we use B flat and D flat before the chord change, it creates this sound, which is an A flat sus chord. When we release this, when we move from our 2 to our 5 to our 1, our melody note is the 7th. It's beautiful. It's absolutely perfect. Now, this is not something that you would expect to work because of the combination of the 7th and the root. It's a little bit dissonant, right? But that's the beauty of 7th chords, especially if we spread it out even more. And so we land right on that major 7th as our melody note, which is really, really nice. Now, this initial part of the melody alone, I think, is one of the things that really aids in making this song particularly beautiful. But I think a huge amount of this song's true beauty and the reason it's so memorable is actually due to one chord, which is coming up.
Take a look, and you'll see
Another 2-5.
into your imagination.
Now, there's something interesting going on there as well, right? So we call it a 2-5-1, and it is a 2-5-1, but there's a little extra thing, and it happens right before we allow this chord to fully resolve to its 1. So we have a 2-5-1 again. Now, when we hit this part of the melody, rather than just going, we're gonna throw something in front of it. Watch this. If you take a D flat, okay, and say your melody note is a C, well, if we build out this chord into a C major chord, right, over our D flat. Ooh, that sounds really crunchy, right? What is that chord? Okay, well, let's take a look. Well, firstly, with just the triad, we have D flat, E, and G, and that is a diminished triad, right? Now, if we were to fill out this chord to be fully diminished, we might expect, right? But we don't. We get, this is diminished major 7. Very simple, it's just diminished chord with a major 7. And so we call it diminished major 7. There's a lot of stupid naming in music, but sometimes it actually makes sense. Now, throwing a diminished major 7 chord in front of a 1 chord resolution can be super effective, and especially when the melody ties so perfectly into it. So take a look. Ah, there's that 9. So far we've been playing with B flat, D flat, and we've just been changing what note we land on. Whether it's that note, or that note, all of them are beautiful. So there's our 5 chord. And then instead of going straight to the 1 chord, let's throw our diminished major 7 chord in front of it. Oh! Woo! That is just an absolutely gorgeous way to create a resolution that adds a little bit of color that the audience's ears probably weren't expecting. You could try this on any resolution. If you just have a 2-5-1, before you play a major 7th chord on the 1, go ahead and play a diminished major 7th chord before you let it resolve. Why does that work so well? Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. We have this and we have that, right? And all we're doing is taking the middle and not letting it come up to its resolution just yet. And because it's chromatic, they're both sort of leading tones in a sense. So it really helps us kind of go, oh yeah, there it is, right?
We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation.
Okay, and there's another thing going on here. We have this really nice that right there is a way that you can get a lot more mileage out of just sitting on 1 chord. Now, would this work perfectly fine if we just left it on the 1 chord? Yeah, it works just fine. But maybe that's a long time to sit just on that 1 chord. What can we do with it? What can we do with it that won't significantly shift the harmony in a direction that we now have to deal with because we've suggested going somewhere else entirely and we need to get back to where we were? This motion does that very well. We have a 1 chord and we're just gonna go 2, diminished, let's see, like diminished flat 3, and then 3. This is a great way that we can create some harmonic motion without leaving this resolution, right? So it doesn't take us anywhere. We're still resolved. It's a really beautiful device and it's used extremely effectively in this tune.
What we'll see will defy.
Here it is. Do you know what it is? Can you hear it?
What we'll see will defy explanation.
Oh. That chord right there, I think, is what makes this potentially the most beautiful song ever written for film. Let's take a look. Check that out. That is so unbelievable. Okay. So we know we have our 2-5. And then we have our 1. And we're gonna do that cool thing. We have our 2. Back to our 5. And this is where it goes nuts. And it's so simple. It's 1 chord, and 1 chord changes the entire feel of the whole song. There are 2 ways, I believe, to make something incredibly beautiful. One way is to give our ears the things that they are expecting. Why? Because it's satisfying when we're creating an expectation and then we deliver on that expectation. There is something beautiful about that. Something as simple as a resolution to a chord that we've set up that sounds exactly like what we're building into. Like if I played every part of that is setting itself up, and it's all very much expected. But songs that are written that way can be incredibly beautiful. And a lot of that is because as we set up those expectations, we continue to deliver on those expectations. The second way, I believe, to make something incredibly beautiful and memorable is to subvert those expectations with something that the listener didn't even know they needed. And that's what we do right here in this moment. We set this up with a 2-5. And then we expect the 1. After all, in the previous phrase, we were given that 1. But this time, we're not gonna do that. Ooh! F major. Now, why does this work so well? There's a few reasons. First of all, our melody fits right in. We were going to go to C anyways, because that's what the melody was before, and it created a major seventh with our chord, with our D flat major 7, right? And so this note happens to also be a common tone with F major. It's simply the 5th of F major. So already the melody is built in such a way that it's gonna work fine. Now, why F major and not F minor? Or anything else that it could have been? I mean, it could be C major, maybe that would be cool. I think F major works really well for a couple of reasons. It shares just enough common tones with D flat that it's not totally out of left field. It's not as though we went 2, 5, and then did something like E major sharp 5, like something that would just be like, oh, okay, I don't know what we're doing, but this is different. We don't want to get that far outside of expectations, but what we do want to do is provide the audience with a sound that has some similarities, that has some connection to where we originally were, but has that X factor that just makes our ears perk up and go, whoa, what did I just hear? Why is that so different? And there's one note in F major that I think does this really well, and that is A. So when we look at the notes of F major, even if we look at it as an add 9 chord, 3 out of the 4 of those notes are within D flat major. All right, let's take a look at a D flat major scale. That's the major scale. But we know that oftentimes with a 1 chord, we're not necessarily going to use the major scale, we're more likely going to use the Lydian mode. And the Lydian mode, if you don't remember, 1, 2, 3, and instead of our normal 4, we're gonna make that 4 sharp. So it's 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. The reason that works so well is because it sounds like this. Look at those notes. When we pull out the ones that we just played in our F add 9 chord, they're already in the D flat Lydian scale except for 1, and that is A natural. So the fact that that one note changes the whole characteristic of this chord, I think that's enough to be related to some degree, but still make our ears go, whoa, where are we going now? Ooh, listen to that. We make it Lydian here too. Major 7th chords just work really well with Lydian, almost no matter where you are. And I like that we let this ring for a little bit. Let us consume this chord, and then we move on.
Paradise.
Yes.
If you want to.
Now check out where we go. So we're sitting on F major, and the only thing we need to do to get back into our original key is flip this whole thing up 1/2 step. That's it. Now we are on our 4 chord of our original key. And that's what's so amazing about this tune, is that the harmony is not unconventional, right? It's a very, very standard chord progression. It's simply that it has a couple of factors, the melody and one small little change that totally subverts expectations and creates this super notable moment of incredible harmony. Then,
And you it. Anything you want to do it.
such a beautiful chord there. So we are on our 1 chord, and we move a tritone. And we do, this is just so great. G half diminished, C dominant, F minor.
Want to change the world. There's nothing to it.
We just end up on our 5. The way that the melody is written over these chords, the chords themselves, aside from that F major, that's really the only thing that is significantly unusual or unexpected about this entire chord progression. The rest of it is extremely standard, but the way that the melody is so brilliantly crafted over it, and the way that we utilize small moments of expectation subversion, it just creates such a memorable result. And that's one of the reasons why I think this tune is one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful ever written for a film. And I'm actually super excited about this. I just put out my first book. I've been working on this super hard and I'm really excited to finally release it to you. It's volume 1 of what I'm intending to be a series of explorations and improvisation simply called Jazz Piano Improv. And if you watch this channel, you may have noticed that we don't really take outside sponsorships. And that's because I've chosen to support this channel by creating something directly from me that I feel is maybe directly relevant to you. Something that's just super useful. So instead of advertising some random company that may or may not be useful to you at all, I've created things that I would want you to sit down and use if I were gonna work with you one-on-one and help you learn how to play this instrument. You've seen I have a whole library of courses available, and volume 1 of Jazz Piano Improv is the next step in that journey. If you've ever wanted to support the channel, if you enjoy the content that we do here, that is the best way that you can do it. And as a result, you get something incredibly useful that you can take into the practice room with you right now. This ebook is over 200 pages. I don't even know how that happened. It was just kind of an accident. And every single thing that we play in it has a backing track and an example track. Here's how it works. I took 10 jazz standard chord progressions and I wrote 5 choruses of improvisation over each one. So there's 50 total choruses. Each chorus has a theme and they get progressively more difficult through the 5 choruses for each tune. There are literally 4 different versions of tracks for each tune. There's one with piano backing, there's one with no piano. I even made one with some light like Rhodes electric piano backing in case you want to hear some of that harmony but you don't want the piano to get in the way of you playing the piano. And then of course there's a reference track for each so you can learn the solo by ear, listen to it over and over again. I did everything with a live band. It's a huge package. And right now we're just looking to launch it, get some feedback on it, and so we are currently offering it at a pre-sale discount of 50%. It's literally less than 20 bucks to get this full ebook and all of the backing tracks. The link is in the description down below, or you can just head over to jazzpianoimprov.com. And again, you guys, this is the way that I've chosen to support this channel. So if you like this content and you wish to support me, which I'm super appreciative of, that's the best way that you can do it. But whether you choose to check out the book or not, I'm just grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.